My worst experience with sleep paralysis was after I'd been up all night doing an essay. When I finished, I immediately dozed off. The next thing I knew, I thought I had completely woken up, except there was a shadow demon looming over the end of my bed. It didn't have a face, but I could feel it staring at me, and it felt like pure evil. I tried with my whole body to scream, but nothing came out, which only made me panic more. I felt like the demon was about to attack me, then his head twitched to the side and he pounced on my chest, sort of thrashing at me. I felt like it was suffocating me. I tried to close my eyes again and put all my energy into trying to wake up and move my body, the whole time with the demon hallucination still attacking me. When I was finally fully awake, I lay in bed for about half an hour shaking and next to tears. It was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced. I thought it was just a really vivid nightmare until a few months later when I first read about sleep paralysis online. Sleep paralysis started when I was 7, and it was scary. I remember the walls shaking and a ringing in my ears, going through a tunnel. This continued into my teens, and sometimes I felt I was battling entire groups of demons that spoke strange languages. Then I explored lucid dreaming, and following my spirit guides, until they became unpredictable and began biting me and being evil in general. Then in my late 20s I discovered that I could have sex with the beings. I know you're thinking that is disgusting. I would move my hand to my private area and have an orgasm by myself, without ever touching myself, strictly in my head. This would immediately send me to sleep afterwards. And it has the added effect of making the paralysis enjoyable. I had them since I was a kid, and as most cases where families are scientifically unaware of what it is, I heard all types of explanations, demon possession being the scariest of them all. When I turned 14 and became acquainted with internet information, I realized it was a relatively normal experience for people with overactive imagination or high levels of anxiety and stress. So goodbye fear, hello funny times. Now, what I used to experience as a kid were the usual feeling of apprehension, the sense someone was watching me, having a heavy pressure on top of me, and from time to time visions of shadows in the room. And even though that was scary, I would say it was mild. 2 weeks ago, as I was working on a project with a very demanding deadline, I went to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. Knowing I'd have to be up by 5 o'clock in the morning. Just to get back to work on the same thing again. So, I lay down, my mind still running but my body utterly tired and tense all over. I am full aware I'll have another episode, as I am quite adept at identifying the workings of it now, but I also know how to control it, so no worries there. And then it happens, I'm there in my room but I can't get up. I start to slow down my breathing and think about any other thing, and suddenly I am hearing voices, whispers and mumblings with an extraordinary clarity, and then someone sits in my bed and I feel fingers tracing from my bare leg, all the way up on my side until finally stopping at my cheek. A slow, long and firm caress. All the while the voices getting louder and me laying stiff, being unable to turn my head and see what's the thing on my bed. I woke up utterly terrified, look at the clock and just 20 minutes had passed. I was alarmed, not because of the voices and the thing touching me, but because I hadn't ever experienced auditive hallucinations or the particular sensation of something solid touching me. Sure, I used to have vivid dreamings where I taste, smell, feel pain and all sort of stuff, but it had never occurred while having a sleep paralysis episode. I was scared I was actually awake and having an episode of schizophrenia. It scared me shitless. I'd woken up in my dorm room. It was a stormy night, around 4 in the morning, and still quite dark, though there was yellowish-orange light from a street lamp outside. The window at the foot of my bed had been left cracked open and was banging in the wind. I got up to shut it and stumbled back to bed, lying on my right side facing the wall, with my eyes closed. It began with tactile hallucinations. I felt as if a pair of slightly clammy hands with thick fingers were gently stroking my face, in particular my lips, eyes, and ears, and prodding at my mouth. Eventually this feeling gave way to prickling pins and needles all over my body, and I felt very cold and buzzing, as if I were electrified, or covered in static shocks. At the same time, a heavy ringing began in my ears, very loud, and in an even tone. It was at this point I got the sensation that there was someone else in the room, very close to me. I was able to open my eyes, and I felt this weight pressing down on the left side of my ribs and shoulder. The light from the street was blocked by shadow, and I realized the shadow had a solid form, a squat creature, with cat-like features and claws, though humanoid and compact. It was about 3 or 4 feet tall, sitting on top of me. It had pointed ears, and pale yellow eyes, with no pupils. I couldn't distinguish its face beyond the outline and its glowing eyes. I knew it was a demonic force of some sort, and I tried to scream. I felt the air leaving my throat, but only heard a faint whimper. I don't know how long this lasted, but eventually the apparition was gone and I was able to move. I got up and turned on my bedside light and sat up until dawn. I started experiencing sleep paralysis during the exam period of my first year at university, a very stressful time for me. The first time it happened, I woke up with the feeling I was being suffocated. My bed was literally swallowing me up. The more I panicked and the faster my pulse and breathing became, the quicker I was disappearing into the bed. I couldn't move a muscle and my attempts to scream were silent. After I calmed myself down, I kind of drifted out of my paralyzed state and woke up completely. The second time it happened, I awoke to see a very tall man standing by my door holding something behind his back and moving towards me very slowly. Once again I couldn't move and couldn't make a sound. It is definitely the most terrifying experience. The first time it happened to me was when I went for a nap during the day. I was lying on my side, facing away from my door, when I woke up to the sound of my door closing. I tried to turn around to see who had came into my room, but I couldn't move. My eyes were wide with terror. I could see everything in my room. I heard this thing walk around my room, then it sat on my bed and I could feel the bed dip from its weight. It then shuffled toward me and it felt like it began to spoon me. It was extremely tall. I was trying to move so hard, but I was just lying still. The thing started breathing on my neck and tickling my back. It then stood up and left after a few minutes. This was the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me,